Ladies and gentlemen, Barton Lynch.
Why, thank you. Welcome, people, to the Stoked Bloke Show. I'm Barton Lynch. I am the Stoked Bloke, and joining me in the Pipeline Studios is Mr. Peter PK King. You're a beauty, mate. We love ya. We love ya. We love being here at the Pipeline Studios. We also love a New Earth Project for their support and everything that they're doing to make the world a better, cleaner place and to rid the ocean, lakes and rivers of plastic. And I see on our leader's Instagram, Wes Carter, that he caught up with Burton Snowboards and those guys are on board. So day by day, the New Earth Project gaining momentum, bringing people into the space and changing the supply chain for the better.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Wes is also on an advisory board for some political actions that are happening to hold plastic producers responsible for their product. I think the end goal of that is to maybe get them to quit using plastic for water and such that. But yeah, a lot of things happening with New Earth Project. Even contests coming up and secret things, but we won't get into that yet.
Got a few little secret things. PK, the creative genius that he is, has got a few things going on behind the scenes that are exciting for all of us, exciting for surfers, especially those here in Hawaii who, you know, largely don't get a lot of competitions to take part in here. I mean, a lot of the events that come are the big events and they bring all the pros in, but the locals don't get a lot of opportunity because of that.
Yeah, Hawaii, birthplace of surfing, should be considered one of the most important regions. And there was a huge movement 20 years ago on the Hawaii amateur circuits to really push Hawaiians and have more opportunity. Then Hawaiians started getting on tour back with, Kaipo Hakia, Sandy Irons. Once you go pro right now in Hawaii, let's say you're 18 years old and you're a hot shot and you've won the HSAs, the NSSAs, and you're doing good and you go pro, boom, there's not an event in Hawaii. There's like one, maybe two. It'd be nice to put the jersey on 4 or 5 times a year in your local waters, earn a little money, boost the local surfing enterprise. And industry, whatever you want to call it. So there just needs to be a little more opportunity. So we're working towards finding some solutions for that. When I was growing up as a pro surfer in California, there was the Bud Pro Tour.
Yes.
6, 8, 10 events. You could win money almost every weekend. There was a lot of opportunity. So California had the Bud Pro Tour. There's a lot of opportunity for kids in California to put the jersey on, compete at a high level, not just put the jersey on. That's kind of fun. But then compete at a high level, good judging. There needs to be more of that in Hawaii. And you can go to lesser named spots so you're not taking away the premier spots. You could go to, White Plains. You could go to Sandy Beach. You could go to Hokipa. There's a lot of places where you could compete in Hawaii that are similar to the places you're going to compete on the QS, right?
Yeah.
Or the CS at some point.
Absolutely.
We have our Sakurimas too in Hawaii.
And the thing about that is that's more important maybe than all of it is the bringing together of the community, having people come together. The winning, the losing, the competition stuff is it's the opportunity to create a career and a future for these young kids. So that's a fantastic thing. But bringing people together, bringing the surfing community together at surfing events is always a stoker. And I've been out of action the last the back's been playing up for about 6 weeks, but Friday before last, I hit the floor, went to the wave pool, sat on the side of the wave pool.
And couldn't get up.
And just the whole left side went into spasm from my toes to my hip, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. And I was like, I've got to get out of here. I couldn't get back up. So I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on my board and let's see if we can surf this out.
So you're just going to ride and get pushed out the back, and then maybe they'd come haul you out in a wheelchair?
I jumped to my feet and I kind of started to try and do some turns, and I was like, and it wasn't going anywhere, so I just had to flop out the back, roll through the thing, couldn't stand up, and was on my back for 4 days on the mattress in the living room, and at night, having to lean over with the bottle instead of get up and go to the toilet. The whole thing was traumatic, mate. But during that time, speaking about events every weekend in California, in that time period, I watched Lisa Anderson's movie Trouble. Great movie, great watch, and an amazing life and career that she has had, and especially those early days where she just did whatever it took, mate. She chanced it all for success and succeeded. But she talks about how often there were these events and how every weekend they were going to events and there was stuff to do. And that's the foundation of creating opportunity. So good on you for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we want to put together. A lot of people have been trying to do it. Also, maybe bringing in the board riders series of events where local areas compete against other local areas. But iron sharpens iron. We know if we do this that Barton Lynch is going to be involved in one way or another, whether it's the online commentary or down there in person.
Yep.
So imagine events in Hawaii with free entry, prize money per heat, $500 for a heat win, $250 for second.
That's one I really love. The rather than an end of the event winner takes all situation,
Right.
kind of, you win your first heat, you get some dough, and
You
you're
win
on your
along
way.
the way. You play it smart, you win money.
Yeah.
I figured that's right in line with like a Barton Lynch type of surf coaching too. You want to win those early rounds, establish dominance over the competitor. All this stuff. So there's a lot to be figured
Ironed.
out, but I think we're going to start at Haleiwa with a waiting period of December 23rd to January 5th, possibly doing our first kind of showcase event, what we can do. I talked about rollover minutes, which I thought
Yes.
was funny. You surf a heat, normally best two-wave score. In this format, if you get a 7, a 6, and a 5, that third score, you start your next heat with that 5.
So you roll the score over from your previous heat.
Yeah.
What was your highest utilized score?
Yeah. Your third highest score
Comes with you into the next round.
comes when you start off with it. So if you have a really good heat, that's good. You don't get that really good heat and then I got nothing. You're starting off with that third score. So we'll see how it plays out. We got any ideas from you too?
No?
Let's make competition fun again.
Well, now that is a fantastic segue into Jeffreys Bay. We saw the event go down, the World Championship Tour event. They got some surf.
Yeah, and
They
you get
got
to the
waves?
most elite level. You have great waves, great budget, great theater. And that one surfer kid that lives down the street here, a couple blocks away, John, he had a tough result, didn't he?
Well, they broke the internet again, didn't they? I've got to be honest. I didn't really watch much. It's at night for us, right? Through the night, and I'm in not such a good way in the pain stakes, and I'm just laying there in bed. So I didn't watch much of it. But then I on the old gram, I saw that it blow up with people supporting John, disputing the result with Conor O'Leary, and we don't necessarily want to get into that because every event I've ever been to, I've been to a few, there's always one of them heats or a few of those heats or the controversies that go on. Debating those particular controversies is just kind of being on the hamster wheel and just going round and round and trying to argue. What needs to happen is they need solutions. And interestingly enough, out of our last podcast, I got a few emails from members of the public with interesting ideas that I thought that captured my imagination. One here is from Tabloid Films, where they talk about, and I'd never really heard of this, but they talk about dial-based focus groups. People watch something and intuitively turn a dial as they like or dislike what they are seeing. It's used extensively when various media properties want to gauge and analyse what consumers think of their products or their ideas. Turning the dials intuitive, they say, natural and even a physical manifestation of what you're seeing and then feeling. So as you're seeing and watching the ride, you're like, I made it, I fell.
And you can do that with an app. You don't need a dial and a setup.
Well,
The whole
exactly.
surfing public, you could always have the people's favorite.
That's what I'm thinking.
And you could have a sponsor paying for that. If pro surfing had their act together and was really organized like they were year 2 of WSL, back when the money was flowing and the honey was everywhere. But it'd be tough now. But you could do an app, brought to you by whoever.
What about there's 3 judges or 4 judges and 1 public vote? And from this dial-based assertion of a score, because there's a computer program that translate that emotional response that it gets from the public or from the people in the debate, watching the debate in that example, and then it comes at the end and goes, well, that's a 7.68, and that score's added to the judges' scores, and you've got a public involvement in the scoring of that heat. There's all sorts of things like that.
You could just have the people make a score too.
You could do that.
You could value the people's opinion a little
Exactly.
bit. I mean, you look at those comments on the WSL we looked at them. WSL doesn't look at them, but we looked at them.
You wouldn't want to look at them if you're WSL. That's for sure.
But we looked at them. All those people have strong opinions.
Very.
But I think the ultimate solution, Barton, is to have the surfers judge themselves.
And, well, that's complicated.
Connor finishes a ride and goes, mate, that was an 8. And John finishes and goes, mine was an 8.1.
Yeah, that was. And you know that from what we saw, that it didn't look like Connor thought he got the score.
No,
his
him and
coach
Dog both knew that it wasn't the score.
And
He, just so you know,
yes.
he fell. as he tried to ride out. Now, I don't care. It was a great wave to me.
Yeah.
Connor rips. I love Connor.
We do.
But Kolohe Andino wasn't going that extra 6 inches, and they were calling all these waves he had a non-complete.
Yes.
Connor literally came down, went, ooh, and fell.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen, anyway.
Reward for that if they knew. And you get, as a competitor, you knew. I got feelings of whether I won or lost heat.
Well, he's had waves all along the contest. He's done well. He's had 8s, 8.5, 8.7, so he knows he needs an 8.4, whatever he needs. You know if you got it or not.
Yeah. The thing that it made me think, prior to the event, I saw on the Instagram a video come out of Occy surfing Jbay. And arguably the greatest surfer ever at Jbay, particularly on the backhand. And it had him in the 80s. And I remembered the footage from early 80s in that blue, pink and yellow weddy, ripping into the 90s, into the early 2000s. And as I watched that video, I sat there and thought, this is as good as anything I'm seeing today. Did you see that video?
It wasn't much different, was it? And the bottom turn arguably is way better. The line held on the bottom turn, we all know, is
gorgeous,
just beautiful. And you could never do it on a modern board because they're too small.
Well, that's
they won't carry the distance, the rail line. And maybe the top was more bank turn, but there was a lot of bank turns at this level.
Well, and what I liked was Occy's interpretation was consistently different.
Yeah.
And there was this driving power rail turn out of the top where he drives it down the face and the whole rail buries in and he somehow comes out and drives into the next turn. I swear as I watched that, I went, well, this is as good as what they're doing today. This surfing of Mark Occhilupo at Jeffreys Bay is 20 years old. And I don't, maybe 30, and I don't see much difference to what I'm watching today. So the backhand line, really, and I've been saying this for quite a while, the backhand line today is the same as the backhand line that Damien Hardman used for great success. All, the great goofy footers of history of our sport all surfed the basic same line. When you think about the forehand, there are multiple variations of the top turn on the forehand. And you see variety in there where it's been explored, and whether it's Dane Reynolds, John Florence, different arms being dropped back, and it's exciting because you don't know exactly which turn's going to happen.
And the blowtails and the reverses and the airs.
And so the airs are where the consistent difference is. You look at the airs and you go, well, they're on a whole nother level to us. Whole nother level. We couldn't have even imagined doing
so
what
you
they're
never
doing.
took off on a wave and did 2 big alley-oops like Felipe did
At Jeffreys Bay? No way, no. Imagine thinking that. It wasn't even what you did. Then I saw some footage, speaking of natural footers, and Felipe as the winner and the benchmark 3 times in a row. Congratulations to him, and he's a hard man to beat on a right-hand point, isn't he? So fast, so sharp, so powerful, so searing, just beautiful surfing, variety. Throw a few airs in and he's winning consistently 3 years in a row at Jeffreys Bay, beating Ethan Ewing, 2nd place, so great consistency for Ethan. Both those guys securing their spots in the final 5 at lowers, as did Griffin Colapinto. But I saw some footage of Tom Curran on one of those classic waves that he got out there, and there was these fade downs and this hold in the bottom turn and this style and interpretation of that wave and moments that again I looked at and went, that ain't that far off today's standard either. So if you ignore the airs, my point is, I think, is if you ignore the airs and what happens above the wave, the performance on the wave has improved, but it hasn't gone that far or in directions that aren't comprehensible. You can't, you can see the trail, you know where it's come from. And at a point, do you get a little bit, not bored's the wrong word, but you don't appreciate what you're seeing because you've seen it so many times. And that's where I come to with John's performance.
Well, we're old, and we've seen it.
We've seen a lot.
But a lot of people watching today's events haven't seen it.
That's right.
So I don't think there's a boredom with them, but also...
No, I'm talking about the judges in their interpretation of what they're seeing. Is it kind of like, you look at Connor,
what
he's in
what
career
if there
best...
are no judges? What if it was all a joke? There was no judges.
And they're just picking them out of a hat.
They just pick them out of there's no judges.
They've got one guy in a room pumping out 5 scores
That's the
each
conspiracy
time.
theory. There are no judges.
Those guys sit in that room, pretend to score.
Eating a sandwich.
Not even looking at the surf, kind of just hanging out. And there's one guy at the back just with a cigarette out the corner of the mouth, just keeping his job, pumping out 5 scores every wave.
Somebody wasn't watching John's heat, I'll tell you that.
That tube was incredible, wasn't it? How long was that barrel?
I don't think they like tubes.
Well, I don't know that it's... Again, you look at John's surfing, I don't know that I saw anything I hadn't seen.
Right.
I did the tube wave was a smaller wave, so that kind of, but it's still got a good score. I remember when I was there, at times even drawing a spray on the nose of my board with textures or permanent markers so that my board looked different, so that they had something different. And you do have to reinvent. If they see what you're doing and they've seen it for 10 years, and they watch it every time and you do that same thing every time, if it's on the best, that's why wave selection becomes a differentiating factor. Because if you're on the best waves, the wave wins it for you. If there's no clear, concise differentiation on wave selection and on the quality of the waves that surfers have, and it comes back to performance, and you're watching someone do the same thing you've watched, it's not right. We're not saying it's right. It's a human condition to undervalue it almost because you've seen it and it doesn't surprise you. It doesn't emotionally take you anywhere. Someone like Connor, who is in career best form, has the opportunity where John's in great form, no dispute, he's absolutely ripping, but we've seen a lot of it before, and we've seen it in free surfing, we've seen it in heats, it's been well documented. You know what, when he comes up to do that snap, when it was doing it the first few times at Margaret River, we're all like, oh, here it comes, oh, I love that turn. Now you go, yeah, well, that was sick, but I have seen that turn. So it doesn't have the same impact. So reinvention of yourself, reinvention of the look. I believe John's red and yellow boards are in part purposely done for that reason, to create some flair, to create some look, to create a difference in the way that looks to a judge. So you tinker with all sorts of stuff. Might even be wetsuit colours, whatever, to kind of create something a judge looks at and it's new and fresh and they go, oh, I like that. So manipulation of the judges, manipulation of that environment for scores is something that has always existed. I did it. People have always done it. And I think that that's what we're seeing. We're seeing great surfing. We're seeing a favouritism for the backhand, where backhand re-entries... You've
always said this.
Yeah, I've for years, the old 2-turn backhand 8 in the championship series is consistent. Now on the WCT, 4 at Jbay on a wave that might have 8 turns in it, 4 will be enough. You don't need 8. You don't need the best wave. You just need to go up and down. So there's certain ways that they're viewing surfing and directing surfing to its future that, in my mind, really aren't that technical. They're quite basic. And you look at Ock, you look at Dummer, and you go, those guys would be winning a lot of heats today with that ease that comes with scores on the backhand.
Lakey Peterson with the win at Jbay, huh?
Amazing, mate. 4 years, I believe, without a victory.
Wow.
And we know how determined she was and how hungry for success she was as a young lady. And the tour has that ability to just beat you around, knock you down. But she stayed in there, kept fighting, kept working, got the victory over Molly Picklum. So congratulations, Lakey. We all love that. That was a well-deserved win, and great to see her perseverance, her commitment finally get paid off, and in what we would consider one of those respected venues like Jeffreys Bay is always a great place to win.
Yeah, and that moves her up to 6th.
Right on the edge of the top 5, and I know on the top edge of the top 5 in the men we have Gabby and John.
Just outside the Final 5 bubble.
Final 5.
Heading to Chopu.
With Joel Chianca and old mate. One of the things I did notice was Sally Fitzgibbons. It's at number 2 on the Challenger Series. So, or while she didn't make the mid-year cut, she's going to get straight back in next year through the Challenger Series and be back on tour next year, it would seem.
Epic.
So that's an amazing performance from her. But again, I think the exploration into different ways of interpreting surfing is something that's well worth doing. We talked about the dial-based focus groups and how they use emotional dials to gauge people's reaction to content, and how that could be something interesting to play with.
Well, now we do it after the fact. It's called the comment section.
That's right. And that is very entertaining to work with.
And I think the comment section has spoken loudly about that heat.
It was, and that's where I saw it was, on Instagram and the comments, and then I saw some of the comparisons of waves and scores, and I just went, oh, I'm so confused again. This is one of those ones where You know, I think if you're watching it in real time, you're emotionally connected to the thing, and you feel the emotion of that moment, and you're going with that moment, that emotion in that moment. And everyone thought John won, would appear from what the comments said. 90% of them, besides his sponsors or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it also led me to other ideas, and one of them is the old GPS, and the fact that you can put chips into surfers' surfboards that measure the speed, that measure the angles in the turns, the power and torque in those turns, and the flow in the performance overall. And this came from Tom Dilber. He's working on some ideas with this technology. He's been doing that for a long time.
There was something like that where people were putting it on the nose of their board. Geordie was sponsored by that.
Right.
And now, we've got these surf watches that tell you how far you foiled down the coast or how many waves you rode, and then they connect back to a Surfline cam so you can watch that wave. So yeah, you'd think there'd be something you could put in the board, not your watch, because your hand could be moving around.
It says here, from this, it worked out a formula that we could score surfing objectively based upon the movement rather than the subjectivity that is now.
Well, you need both. I think you'd want
the interpretation of the style.
You'd want to watch and do your normal judging, and then you'd kind of look at the technical aspect, and you'd be like, okay, there's a point of difference.
And
it would help. I see it as a help, but yeah, why not?
And then, so you've got one judge there with dials, emotionally reacting. You've got the scores coming in out of a board, determining another score, which is based on that GPS speed, power, flow, I suppose, recipe that has a mathematical equation that takes your performance into a score. And then you've got these people watching it as well. So there's all sorts, I think the point is here is that there's all sorts of potential expansion and opportunity and experimentation in the judging sphere.
Well, let's try this at the Hawaiian Surf Series.
Which wouldn't be bad to do. It'd be great to see some of these things on trial and go, that don't work, next, that does, or that, and see where we get to, because in reality, the judging system we use today is the same judging system we have used for the past 20 years. WSL has not changed judging or upgraded in any way judging from what they inherited, and that's where the money needs to be spent. I think the public would agree.
There just needs to be transparency in coaches' camps with athletes, coaches, sponsors, and the judges, and everyone needs to start agreeing on what a score is, and then lay that out before an event. 4 backs out off the lips is an 877. Okay, great, I'm doing 4 backs out off the lips. But then you could get people going, no. You've got to do some variation in there, steepness and how hard you hit it. I don't think computers are going to solve bad people.
Especially bad when you go back to Mark Occhilupo and the style and the technique, the personal interpretation, and Tom Curran as two of the very best to ride Jeffreys Bay. Their personal interpretation of the wave is epic. Their style, their technique, it mightn't be as flicky out of the top or as smooth on a rail all the time, but it's got an edge and an aggression and a personality to it. That's hard to beat, mate. I watched those 2 waves of those 2 legends and went, well, it hasn't really come that far. And then you think about the airs and go, well, it's actually come a really long way, and that's not the wave to do them on unless you're Felipe.
Now, how important are venues on a real world professional tour? How much more value does a Jeffreys Bay, Chopu pipeline have than a Saquarema?
Well, I think we've got to go to Brazil. There's no way known the World Championship Tour cannot go to Brazil.
Where should it go?
Has to go to Brazil. I don't mind seeing them surf bad waves. I love.
Should it have less
surfers.
Importance in the scheme?
No, I think them all having the same ranking, the same rating, the same value is important.
Sure, that's one event, but look at how skunked they've got on events.
If everywhere we went was a left tube, you're going to have a certain winner. If everywhere we go is a right point, you're going to have a certain winner.
Everywhere is a right point.
And if you point in case, if you go to a variety of conditions, a variety of waves, you're not the boss. Sometimes you're going to get skunked. That's just surfing. It doesn't really matter to me the conditions. I love watching the best surf bad waves. I really enjoy seeing what they can do to just absolute rubbish, and what you look at. That's when you go, wow, they're really good, aren't they? You put on Jbay and everyone's flying down that thing and looking good. You don't even need to do
much. Some
much.
people get exposed to a wave like Jbay, actually.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Some style flaws get exposed.
And for me, I felt that.
Yeah.
I felt personally that Jbay was one of the greatest challenges I had, because I didn't grow up surfing point breaks. I grew up surfing beach break.
Which is weird because I first saw all the photos of you where I became a fan was surfing right points. Those backside off the lips and those Aloha ads.
Yeah, but they were shorter, punchier right points.
I didn't know.
I think.
You
When
looked
you get
good
to
on 'em.
Jbay, it's a long open wall, and I had to learn to kind of slow things down. I feel like I want to go back there and surf it now. you
What's
know?
longer, Jbay from the top to the end or Kelly Slater's Surf Ranch?
That is a fantastic question. I have no idea. Do you?
I
Do you
don't
know?
No, I don't know. Similar, 700 yards on that right.
I like the fact that the Jeffreys Bay wave changes its personality as it
Yeah,
goes along, and there's not that deliberate. Okay, it's going to do this. Here's that section. Oh, here, you know what I mean?
But this
that
goes to your
deliberate
point
nature.
where if the waves are the same, then it comes down to performance.
And you just need variety, and variety is good. So Brazil, I'm all about it on the CT. Florianopolis was good. Saquarema is a good place, mate. Those right-handers down in that
Yeah,
corner.
but you never get it. They've only got it like once or twice in the last 10 years.
You know, the day of the year, I've only been there once, and the year I commentated that event, they missed the best day of competitive surfing that would have happened in Brazil of all time. It was pipeline perfect
I was
all
there.
morning, and they missed it. That was a travesty, that one. But so, you know, that spot has its moments, has its days, and I think there's definitely worse places you could go. I support that, but I support the variety of different waves so that all the different variety of surfers get their day in the sun, so to speak, or chance to show their best. Another quick little one I wanted to put a plug in for. You ever been to Morocco?
Yes.
You have?
Well, I'll just say no.
I've never been to Morocco.
I've touched it. I haven't been.
Have
there.
you? Yeah, I've never been, and it's been one of those places I wanted to go to. And we're going to do a coaching trip
What?
to Morocco.
When?
In November 13th to 20th this year.
So is that summer in Morocco?
No, that's heading into winter because we need the swells. And it's way down there. So it's going to be quite warm. Not hot.
It's always
but
warm.
It's always quite warm. Water temperature's that sort of 20 degrees, so you might wear a 3-2 or a spring suit or whatever. But if you're in Europe, you're in the Middle East, you're in one of those places where you haven't really been able to join me for one of my coaching trips, Morocco's the answer to that. So go to the Perfect Wave website. All the details are there.
What is that website?
It's perfectwavetravel.com.
Sounded
I don't
so
even know.
sure of yourself.
I don't even know what that website
Hold on,
is.
let me
the link is
let me
in
look it
bio
up.
on Instagram.
Let me look it up and see if that's the actual address.
Let's check that. You check.
Just go to Perfect Wave Travel on your search engine and it'll pop up.
Yeah, there it is. And go to the Barton Lynch Experiences page there. We've got our Maldives trips. But the Morocco trip, somewhere I've wanted to go for a long time. It's a great time of year for us to get there. And for Europeans and the Middle East, it's a great time of year. Get a little coaching surf trip in before Christmas with the old fella. Love to have you. On a, I suppose, sadder note, again, it seems that when we join for the podcast, we're always paying our respects to members of our tribe or our family that we've lost. Mikala Jones, passing away, 44 years of age.
Too young.
Too young. Someone I never met. I never had a conversation with Mikala.
Well, Mikala's been in Indo for a long time.
Yeah.
From Rocky Point.
Yeah.
Family house is still there. Big family.
Yes, the Joneses.
Talented family.
Yeah.
Dad, dentist, photographer. All the kids, incredible surfers. Malia, of course.
Yeah.
One of the first, North Shore successful female pro surfers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the nicest, sweetest guy ever.
And surfing accident,
Surfing accident.
femoral artery.
Yeah, and I don't know by the time they got to him if there was anything that could be done.
And where you are, you're out in the mental wise, and you're far from help and support. So we want to pay our respects to his life. The incredible images. I became more aware of him in his passing than I ever was. The images I kept seeing on Instagram were just blowing my mind.
Unbelievable what he did with the GoPro.
Oh, incredible images of surfing that will go down and stay in those annals of history. We send our love and respect to his family and friends, and another big loss for the Hawaiian community. On a brighter note, Clyde Aikau, we know that Clyde suffered a massive heart attack in Las Vegas.
And he's doing okay?
And he's doing okay, mate. The great news for absolute legend of our sport that is Clyde Aikau, who I've seen do some of the bravest, most radical things at Waimea Bay, the Eddie before last. I saw Clyde, he got clobbered by a big set.
Separated his shoulder.
Came to the beach. I got to the beach. He was getting taken out of the water. He's on they've got him on like a trolley or a area they can work on him. His shoulder's all there. They've got him on the oxygen, and I look at him, and he's 66 years old, and you think to yourself, well, he ain't going back out. This is radical. It's radical that he's out there. It's radical that he's doing what he's doing. You're just blown away that he's just such a powerful individual and human being. And he gets up and goes back out that afternoon. And it was one of the most... I had tears in my eyes as he walked that beach to the corner to paddle out. As he went along, it was just the most rapturous applause that I've ever heard.
Gladiator,
mate, and everybody knew it and everybody felt it, and it was one of the most powerful, maybe the most powerful moment I'd ever seen in a surfing competition. And he walks down that beach and paddles out and it goes again. I was like...
At the contest named for his brother.
I'm not
Family
worthy.
runs it.
I'm not worthy,
Clyde.
Incredible Uncle Clyde. So
just an incredible beach boy now, huh?
Yeah, and
still sharing aloha down in Waikiki.
I got exactly, and I got this little message. I sent him a message and got a little message back that said, and this was about a week ago, that he was breathing superb, walking half a mile, his appetite was fully back, on the road to 100% recovery by September. He's got his team together and getting ready for another unforgettable Eddie.
Let's go.
So mahalo to everybody for the success and the love. So that's a good story on the back of a bad one with Mikala. So, well, that's it for this week, folks. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you, PK. Thank you, Pipeline Podcast and the Pipeline Studios, and the big thanks to A New Earth Project for their support. Without them, we wouldn't exist. And thank you to you for watching us. I think our last podcast was our highest viewership that we've had so far.
Really?
Yeah, massive. So thank you to that. Subscribe to us on YouTube, watch the channel, and we'll keep pumping out the content for you.